Welcome to Raconteurs News.
Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News. This is Tuesday evening and been quite a weekend. We've seen all over the internet the ups and downs and the infighting going absolutely crazy just lately. The things I've been seeing on there, absolutely ridiculous.
An example.
Everybody's pulling everyone else to pieces.
Are they?
You see it, Jason?
Yeah, are you talking about Max Egan and Ken O'Keefe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I'm just observing it from the side. I ain't got a dog in that fate. I'm just sort of like interested, but all it does is really detract away from, it diverts people's attention away from what's really important, and this sort of thing isn't really important. But if there are people out there that are misguiding other people and gaining from that, not that I know that there is. This is just the accusations that have been laid out. Then what can you do? It's human nature, really.
It needs to be addressed, and I suppose before I'm outed, I better make a public confession here and now. We were supposed to be doing a pre-record tonight, and we did. We recorded it. We spent 2 hours recording it. It was a great show. Unfortunately, being the technical idiot that I am, I deleted it. I had Kev Mark on with me trying his best with his recovery software to get that file back, but I couldn't. So, fortunately and unfortunately, we've got the participants back together, and they've joined us this evening, and that's Gordon Bowden, David Veitch and Peter Bromfield from Pandoras Box Investigations Limited. Good evening, guys.
Evening, guys.
Evening,
Evening.
Don't worry about it, because it's a better show. It's going to be a better show tonight, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, before we start,
There's a lot of information tonight.
That thing you was talking about, Jason, with Ken O'Keefe, is the controversy him sitting next to that girl while she's sort of playing about in the passenger seat of the car? Is that the controversy, or is there more?
I actually don't know the bones of the controversy itself, and but I do believe that is a part of it. It is a point of controversy, and a point that's been brought up that apparently Ken O'Keefe has dumped his wife and kids. I have no idea. I've got no idea about Ken O'Keefe's personal life.
Whose business is that other than theirs? That's
what I'm saying. But I do believe that somebody has brought that up as part of the whole thing. I'm not saying that that's anything of anybody's business at all.
We've got to be aware. We've got to be aware that there's a lot of people that are paid to throw spanners in the works. Now, I could put myself next to some beautiful woman in a car without being there. We've got green rooms these days, so rather than comment on things like that, I'd rather just ignore it, because by talking about it, I think it just stokes the fire and it just goes all out of proportion. So I think until you get a definitive answer. Now, this is why our team of people with us guys, we don't release anything unless it's 100% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is why nobody's been able to discredit anything that's been said. So, that's what I like to stick to. I know a lot of guys in the truth movement, if you want to call it that. And to be honest with you, I got out of it because it was so bitchy and egotistical. I thought I was back in the land of rock and roll, but it's. Well, I'll just concentrate on what I'm doing.
I don't want you to think that I'm giving it any oxygen. Andy just brought it up, and I just sort of named the elephant in the room that everybody's thinking about, and that's simply it. So I think probably, like you say, the best idea is to ignore it and move along and discuss what we've.
Max Egan's, everyone's. I mean, how do we know it's even come from him? I just don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of that about, but we've also got to realise that at the end of the day, we can't take our eyes off of what we're fighting for, because this is why it's done. It's all a distraction, and this is how they've done it in the past, and they can't get away with that kind of shit anymore, right? Because we've got to concentrate on our objectives, and no matter what you're investigating, whether it be paedophilia or what we do, or it can be any number of things, the fracking, anything you want to, they all lead back to the same people. Okay, so these people are getting it from all sorts of directions, and that's a good thing, and we've got to keep doing that.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to what we want to talk about now, Andy and Jason?
Yeah, please go ahead, guys.
Okay.
Sorry, I'd like to get my 10 cents in.
Yeah. That's fine. Right, Gordon, do you want to open up on some of the information that you want to pass over tonight?
Again, you've been stirring it on the stock exchange bulletin message boards.
Never.
Yeah, you.
Me.
You said that, I said that, you said that, I said that. Finchley Road.
What Anglesey Mining PLC you're talking about, Gordon?
Oh, never.
Must be.
You mean the Magnox North Nuclear Waste Repository? You mean that one?
That's the one that's disguised as a mine.
Where one of the Masonic Lodge members has done a runner.
Mr. Turner.
Yeah, Roger William Turner. He's resigned from Anglesey Mining PLC, the 32-year Ponzi scam that has stolen hundreds of millions and never made a teaspoonful of dirt. That Roger William Turner. That's mentioned in the Panama Papers.
All right. Do you want to open up a bit on that then, Gordon?
Yeah, well, most of the British politicians are running away from the Panama Papers. They don't want to go down this route. They don't want to expose the fraud, theft and money laundering that's been exposed in the Panama Papers. And many of the people that I've exposed going back, I don't know, 10 years, they're all named in the Panama Papers, even David Cameron's company. And so when you do a basic follow the money, it's easy not just only to name them, but to put them forensically in a company that needs explanation to the people of this country about tax evasion, fraud, theft and money laundering. And this is why I believe David Cameron bowed out when he did, because he knows the heat is on. Even I've sent Theresa May recorded email correspondence which clearly outline his involvement with Panmure Gordon directors in Blaymore Holdings. These people are not going to get away with it. They're accountable. They're public servants.
And of course, Blaymore Holdings is Cameron's company.
Yeah, well, one of.
Yeah.
But he used the old henchman of his father's from Panmure Gordon to be able to do the facilitating to set up the structures to do the money laundering. These people are expert boiler room operators. That's how they get away with it. Now you're seeing companies that are facing massive tax bills like Apple and like Vodafone. But
6 billion, isn't it, or 9 billion today, Gordon? It came out in the
0.3 billion, 13 billion, I think it is.
13, was it?
13.6 billion. That's the Irish.
I pointed out that David Cameron, using his capacity as a prime minister, managed to get Vodafone off a £6 billion tax bill. And the directors of Vodafone were Miss Anne Laverone and Samuel S. and Jonah, two of the biggest con artists and fraudsters in corporate history.
Yeah.
And isn't he answering a public inquiry as to his involvement in India to get his mate, the mate of Bill Clinton and George Bush, the director that ran Cairn Energy. So his name is William Bill Benjamin Bowring Gamble, and he was one of the biggest structurers of Ponzi scams of fake oil, gas and mining companies run out of 50 Lothian Road in Edinburgh.
Yeah, which was all started by Strang, wasn't it? MI5.
Yeah, these people have been extracting the urine for 40 years. These people are the ones that need to be put in front of a massive inquiry as to how they've got away with it. And they've got away with it because they're bunging dirty money to politicians who they then make as non-executive directors in these fake oil, gas and mining companies. That's what needs to be exposed by Theresa May. Not talking about how we're going to do the Brexit. These buggers got us into it. They can get us out of it. It's not rocket science. All they got to do is a reversal of what they did when they went in.
Yeah.
All they have to do is repeal the 1972 European Communities Act. That's all they need to do.
Yeah. You know this Philip Green thing that's going on at the moment, the British home stores?
Yeah.
And all those people have lost their jobs and they're going to lose a massive pot. They're going to lose a large chunk of their pensions.
Yeah.
Now, I sent an email to Frank Field.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago. We're waiting for a reply back off him because we're prepared to help him to get Philip Green and his what's the other guy called, Gordon?
Well, there's Dominic Chappell. He's
Dominic Chappell, yeah. Now, go on, Gordon, go on.
Well, he's the one that sold on the company, and these are the people that asset stripped it. And the way they asset stripped it was the same as anyone. They lend people money, vast amount of money, which is unsecured. They then renege on and they write it off. It's a write-off. Just the same as they did in ABC Four Corners Bad Company when they stole $1 billion of Johannesburg Consolidated Investments, and just the same as with Areva Nuclear and Urim. They buy worthless assets, but they put a value on it and then write it off. Now, the only people that pick the pieces up are the Bank of England, which then is reverted back to the taxpayers, who that then have to cover the loss. And it's then a toxic debt to the bank. And you can't have, well, you did have, like with Royal Bank of Scotland, when they got rid of a few people, they got rid of 7 directors. And
what was his name? Stephen, what was the main one? I've forgotten his name now.
Yeah, I know the one you're on about. There were 7 common directors who were all to a lot of the banks, and these people are just playing musical chairs in the banks.
Yeah.
And the more they lose, the more they give these people in bonuses. It's but nobody ever checks, and well, until people like myself, is that when you get a risk analysis like Richard Chang, who was thrown from the 5th floor of the Abbey National Building, because he identified what I identified, is that the bankers have hundreds of companies that they loan money to.
Yep.
And a lot of their mates are Freemasons, and they are lending these virtual companies hundreds of millions of pounds, which then get written off as an unsecured loan. And that's how they do it. They're bank robbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's also drugs money as well, isn't it? It's getting laundered through the system.
It's all about, even we mentioned earlier on about Bill Clinton, how he got funded in his re-election campaign by Frank Justra. And when John Patterson's criminal case down in Brighton, when I met Field McConnell, whose sister Marcy is the lesbian lover of Hillary Clinton, and she's the one that structured the passport on behalf of the CIA for our Barack Obama. So when you're talking about corruption at the highest level of politics, Frank Giustra was an employee of a company called Macquarie Capital Markets Canada Limited, on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and his company, Macquarie Capital Markets Canada Limited, was the funding structure for thousands of the fake oil, gas and mining companies. So when these companies were paying off their dividends to Macquarie Capital Markets Canada Limited, that's where the money came for him to donate $31 million to Bill Clinton's re-election campaign. And that's where Hillary Clinton gets her money from these fake oil, gas and mining companies. It's a joke.
Yeah. Gordon, I watched, I went to a site called, oh God, what's it called? Brett Brightman or something. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But it was a really interesting site. I've downloaded it onto Facebook, and I think I put it on your Facebook page as well. But it's a documentary by this guy called Peter Schweinsizer or something his name is. But it's about the Clintons. It's about the Clinton Foundation, and it's really interesting because it goes round all the different scams they've been pulling in Haiti, in Colombia, with what's his name, Justra and other people, and it's Frank Justra. It's massive. It's massive. And what I've done is, in the past, I've sent information on to the guys at Able Danger. Yeah. So I've sent them that particular documentary, which is really interesting, but it doesn't go into the sort of depth that you go into, because you've got everything, and I mean everything, all the ties into everything. And I've sent that on to Able Danger, to Phil McConnell, to see if he'll pass it on to what's his name? You know, the guy that's fighting for the election in America. Trump. Yeah, Trump. So I'd like to see if Able Danger are going to pass that on to him, because they've said that they're in contact with Trump, and they're passing information on. So I'd just like to just to put it on record that we've passed that across to him. Yeah, to Able Danger, Phil McConnell.
Oh, that'll be interesting to see what happens there, David. If we can just roll back a couple of minutes there, Gordon. We've got a question in the chat room, and it's come from someone called Gringo. And what they wanted to know is about the mine in Anglesey. What evidence have you got that there is nuclear waste in that mine? They're asking.
Yeah, the first thing was that I'm going back to 2004. I started tracing some of the directors involved with my partner's fraud and 800 other victims in South Africa. And that involved individual directors of a company called Metarex Limited, which is a 1 billion rand deficit mining company in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And their subsidiary company was called Copper Resources Corporation, and their other company is called Pan-African Resources. Now, one of the directors I found was a director of Anglesey Mining PLC. So his name is Malcolm Alec Byrne. Now, by doing a basic director check, what you see is that these people purchase worthless plots of shit, and I'll say that, and they put glitter on a turd. And what they're doing is then they put an unacceptable value on the asset to say that it contains hundreds of millions of tons of gold and diamonds in order to float a company. And they base their false geological resources to start and to give a value to that company that they then sell to their mates for millions. But it's worthless junk. Now, Anglesey Mining PLC, what evidence did I have? What I did do was I ran through each director from the day it started, Anglesey Mining PLC, from 1984, and I studied every company that every director was a director of. And what I found was that one of the directors, a guy called Dr. Hugh Morris, was part and parcel of the nuclear establishment. Now, I worked for Goldfields of South Africa, and I worked at one of the biggest gold mines in South Africa, East Driefontein gold mine, interlocked with West Driefontein gold mine. And we worked to 3.5 kilometres, working at a profitable value of 14 grams a tonne. Now, when I looked at the basic design of the mine at the Paris mine, it was sunk in 1989 to 1991, and then I checked the directors who were there at that time. And those directors are the very same ones who are interlocked with the nuclear establishment. Now, why would you have a copper mine that's interlocked with directors whose main biographies are linked to the nuclear industry? So when I looked at the people who sunk the mine, it was Cementation Mining. Cementation Mining worked for Sellafield. Now, is that ringing any bells?
Yep.
Sellafield are the nuclear waste contractors. So they sunk a 300-metre vertical shaft with a 1,000-metre offshoot gallery. And within that offshoot gallery, you've got to have a ventilation shaft if you're to maintain standard mining operations. They never sunk a ventilation shaft, which meant that you'd have to have a second method of egress should there be an accident in the main shaft. So the whole design of the mine was structured as a repository, not as a standard mining operation. So they ceased the operation in 1991. Magnox North Power Station, the twin nuclear reactors, the Magnox reactors, they closed down in North Wales in 1989 to 1991. Now, I wasn't the only one that picked this up. Private Eye did. And they wrote 2 articles. And I wrote to Private Eye, and they sent me the articles, which I then sent to a person in Anglesey, who then confronted the directors of Anglesey Mining PLC and the Anglesey County Council and the Welsh Authority. They all ran away. They ran away because the standard procedure for any nuclear waste repository, it must be in stable ground. And Anglesey was one of the prime areas. So I didn't just base it on hearsay. I did a lot of research into the directors, their histories, the biographies, the actual technical design of the mine and its shaft.
Geological findings, yeah.
I did a lot of research before I made any accusations, but I based it on a lot of the individuals who were directors who have run multiple Ponzi scams that have silted and cash burnt hundreds of millions of pounds in the past. These people are a cover front for a nuclear waste repository. Their other mine, the directors, Bill Kearney, Derek Kearney, he operates with the others, with the same people, Dr. Hugh Morris, Canadian Zinc Corporation, which is at the Prairie Creek mine, which was a contaminated silver mine that never went into production for 1 day. Not 1 day, because the silver content is contaminated with mercury. Now, there's been a talk about these individuals because they started Canadian Zinc Corporation from a pizza company.
Whose pizza company, Gordon?
When you spend the time to look at the paperwork, it's just a very simple thing, is follow the money. These people have been getting away with it for generations. And that's how they've expanded on it. And that's how, when you look at their biographies, they're directors and have been directors of 80 to 100 companies, like David Anthony Lenigas.
Oh.
Never mind anything.
Mr. Sweaty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What they call him, Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt, that's him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Sweaty.
Anybody wish to take me to court for calling it a nuclear waste repository, give it a go. Because the first thing that I'll do is I'll ask to examine the shaft. And I've done shaft exams on a 2,400 metre and 1,000 metre vertical shaft and sub-vertical shaft. So I could quite...
I seem to remember seeing a video that that was taken where I think there was sulphur or something coming out of the ground up there.
Well, look, where we did the filming with Dave Eden across the road on the old Moonscape, the old 4,000-year copper, tin and zinc mine, which is all open cast, and then it's just a Moonscape sort of area, is that all that ground, all the catchment areas where the water is so acidic, it's beyond belief.
Yeah. And so I saw an article the other day in the paper about Anglesey being the choice of where the best place to live. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to live there. I bet you their cancer rates there are huge.
They are. They are huge.
Yeah, there you go.
The air pollution...
You've got to ask yourself, why is that? Okay, and it's because... And Anglesey mine isn't just the only mine that's a nuclear repository, we can assure you.
Well, I'm saying that Canadian Zinc Corporation's the Prairie Creek mine is another one, but in Canada. Yeah. Because it never mined one day.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think that there's probably a few in Australia as well, because
more than a few.
Place is so vast, you could hide tons of the stuff. You know, it's going on all over the world. And I remember in the 70s when they brought that up to the public went, "No, you're not," and they promised that they hadn't done it, but they already had.
They're supposed to ask the local population to give a consensus on whether they would approve it. But they've just gone ahead and done it because they don't give a shit about people.
That's it, and they're doing the same thing now with the fracking people. They're just rollering through them, not answering any questions, not giving any explanations about the evidence that they have. And of course, there'll be a lot of fake fracking companies set up as well.
And what about drilling ultra depth holes and then moving canisters down them?
Well, that's right. And you know, I mean, to put this in a nutshell, I've worked in quite all aspects of open cast mining, from explosives to reaming out ventilation shafts, operating the equipment, operating ball mills, plant mills, and I can tell you that I could drill a core sample tomorrow if I had a drill rig, and then I could add my own material to it to give it a false rating from the geologist, where I could then go and print in a pamphlet my find, which is of course known to me as a bullshit find, print a glossy pamphlet and float it on the market.
Well, they did.
And that's what they do.
They did. Sorry, they did that with Brex.
Yeah,
Brex Minerals and Broex. And do you know why they did it? Because it's the same people.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I could take you to one place in Western Australia, a place called Mount Magnet. All admitting I've been there for 20 odd years, but back in that time, there was thousands of little plots you could buy, going from $1 up into the thousands of dollars. And this is what these people do. They'll buy a worthless plot of land.
Yep.
They'll employ some bent geologist to give a bent report of it, because you'll notice their signatures are never attached to these things. And this is how they do it. And then it's people, the ordinary people, that end up losing out, end up losing all their investments, their life savings. And this is why we decided to set up the company. So we've got so much information that we're hoping that people that have lost money in the investment market, and including people that want to invest, we will look into and try and regain their monies or look into the companies they're investing in.
Well, as I said, paperwork's a very boring subject, very boring. However, it becomes interesting when you see who's involved and how much money they're stealing. That's when it becomes...
Thousands of these mining companies, right, Gordon? It's not just one or two. There's thousands of them.
Thousands.
And we've got this. When we went to the Roadshow Investors Conference about 3 months ago, we've now got. We've had a director of a company called Red Rock Resources who have contacted us to see if we'd like to investigate their CEO, right? I mean, this is the kind of things that are going on. So people that actually work within these companies, they don't necessarily know that these things are scams. It's only the people that are sitting on the board, the people that are in control of the money.
That's right, and that was Andrew Bell, and that was actually in when we were walking around the Master Investor Roadshow. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah,
and he sent you a text.
Yeah, I had a text
off your card because you passed out a card. You passed out one of your company cards.
Yeah.
He's contacted you and texted you to meet you.
Anonymously, the first one came through. Anonymously, the first one came through. Would you like? Would you like to meet? I've got the lowdown. I think I've still got the text on my phone, but anyway.
Yeah.
Would you like to meet up? It's lowdown. And I said, yeah, come along. And then eventually, I tracked him down to where he was speaking, and I coerced him towards a little table where he joined us. But unknowns to him, we recorded everything, and he's put his foot right in it, basically.
Yeah, because he stitched up David Lenegas by telling us, which is all on the record, that he had the copies of the checks and the people who signed those checks.
Yeah.
So once you start getting into these people, and that day we made a lot of people very nervous. Now, David Lenegas usually struts around like he owns the place, but I can tell you no one saw him. He was hiding from us. Every time he saw us, he walked away where the normal punters couldn't get to him,
Especially TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah, he didn't like that much, did he?
Yeah,
once you get these people and you've got them, they turn on each other.
Peter,
to distract you from what they're up to. And what we did, what Gordon did, was he did his fantastic research into Andrew Bell, and we found a load of stuff that he's linked to as well. So.
Well, maybe you don't know this, Peter, but Andrew Bell's father was Sir Bell.
Yeah. There's a lot of sirs in there, isn't there?
Senior. He was one of the senior Freemasons linked to the Monday Club, the Conservative Monday Club.
Yeah.
Now, he's not going to want...
That hasn't closed down, That hasn't closed down, that Monday Club, because when it got outed, they just all made another one. That still goes, that.
That's right, but people don't understand is that Andrew Bell has got a son, and he's also in a mining company. Do you understand? And that mining company has changed its name backwards and forwards twice, to the same name, back to an old name, back to the same name. Now, this is what they don't want people to get exposed, that we've got them. There's no way out. They can't get out of documents, and documents...
They're trying to actually... what they want to do is close Companies House, but if any of them people are listening, I'd like to tell you that you can close it, because we've downloaded the whole library. So we don't really care what you do to try and stop us. We ain't going to stop.
No, you can't. What's happening is that these people that are linked to senior politicians like Tony Blair, Michael Howard, baronesses, David Cameron, all these people one day will face the wrath of the people for what they've been doing. I would hope. Well,
yeah. As David Cameron with the Panama Papers took a bit of flack for his father, because his father was, we all know what his father was. I mean, look, what I think about is, why the hell would a guy like David Cameron, who you can actually link him back to William the Conqueror, his family is so rich. They originally owned Buckingham Palace. Back then it was called Buckingham House. And they sold it to the present royal, or whatever you want to call them. I don't particularly like them much. So, why is this man in public office? I mean, why do they go into public office, these multi-millionaires? And, is it to try and cover all their tracks, maybe? Because, we all know about Carlton TV. With Cameron. We all know, well, I hope a lot of people now know about the nuclear bombs that went missing from Oman. So look, we can assure you these people are dirty, and we've got to get rid of them so we can all progress, because we're not going to progress anywhere.
Look,
these people have got it sewn up. I mean, they must, the money, I mean, why do they take the money? Why do they want so much of it? And it's control. It's divide and rule politics, party politics, and it's got to come to an end.
There's a lot of people that have recently written about Philip Green, and he's faced an inquiry by a lot of Tory MPs saying that...
Is he not a Sir? He's Sir Philip Green, isn't he?
Yeah, he's Sir Philip Green.
Yeah, another Sir. Yeah.
If you do a basic check, I'm just saying a basic check, what you will look at is that his mate, that Dominic Joseph Andrew Chappell, he was a former racing driver, and when you check, the administrators for that is David Rubin and Partners, who were also administrators for Swiss Rock Limited. Now, they were paid at least 1.6 million by British Home Stores and its parent company. And Chappell's consortium buyer, British Home Stores, the retail acquisitions, they received 17 million from British Home Stores during its ownership of British Home Stores. And that's systematic plunder, has been pointed out by other major media papers. So when it comes to questions that these people are facing by politicians, this is all preset.
Exactly, Gordon. Exactly.
I mean, what we've worked out, Andy, is this. Now, we've taken this stuff to everywhere, as I'm sure people that know of Gordon's work have seen. It's been to the TV. It's been to the Serious Fraud Office. It's been to the courts. It's been to the NCA. Now, we're just getting flabbed off. It gets passed upstairs. The evidence is enough evidence to put people in behind bars for a quarter of a century. Why are they not doing it? Right? We pay these people to do this work, to do the work that we do. They've got to realise that this stuff is holding us all back. I mean, I just don't understand how they can get away with it. It's probably because they have massive salaries. It's a little club because there's not very many of them, but it's something that needs to be stopped. The money that the taxpayers losing through corruption, through company fraud, would be enough so the rest of us don't have to pay any tax whatsoever. This is how we're talking hundreds of billions of pounds that gets taken
Trillions.
from me, from everybody that is in this country. This isn't money that is just made up. This is money that is hard earned. This is people's money.
If there's any listeners from British Home Stores and they want to look at the dirty side of how their money from their pension fund was stolen, and there's a pension fund holder, I think is about 600 million. Dominic Chappell, why don't they go and have a look at Cadiz Petroleum and Olivia Petroleum?
Mm-hmm.
These are overseas companies. And like all the oil, gas and mining companies that I've exposed in the past, all it takes is a dedicated team to sit down to dismantle these companies and look at where the money was taken, how it was taken, and where it was moved. That's how people like Sir Philip Green can have 3 yachts. One is 100 million.
Gordon, I'll send Frank Field an email. Cadiz Petroleum, and who was the other one?
It's
Janol Energy.
Olivia
No.
Petroleum. Olivia Petroleum.
Oh, Olivia, you may as well tell them about that one as well.
Well, no, we'll stick to the point, and the point is to put Frank Field on the spot, because he is a person that is supposed to be fighting, right, the rights of the pensioners that have had their money ripped off. So we'll send him some facts, not hearsay, but we'll send him some facts, and we'll put him on point. We will put him in a position where he will have some information to work on. If he doesn't do it, then we know what's
paid off as well, because we can get this money back. You know.
Yes. So Gordon, if you send me later on, those links to those companies, I'll send it on. Unless you want to do it,
they've been
Frank Field.
Listen, Dave, they've been mentioned by major media. That's why I picked them up.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So they know about these oil companies, and what you looked at when you do a basic check is that these were oil receptor containers, like refinery tanks somewhere, where they were just used, I say, like much the same as Nadine Zahawi in Gulf Keystone Petroleum and Djibouti, where they were buying rebel oil from ISIS and then moving it through Turkey into Israel.
Yeah,
this is the problem that we have in this government.
Yeah. He's disappeared, you know. He was all over the TV until we released that little bit of a gem, and he seems to have disappeared. I just I haven't seen him, heard from him, nothing.
Look, there's a big story in the paper last week, I think, about the Hillsborough tragedy and the police superintendents being Freemasons that covered it up.
Yeah,
I picked that up off Peter because Peter put that on his site.
Yeah,
digging.
They were mentioning a company called Peace Marvel Limited. Am I right?
Yeah, that's what I sent you, Gordon.
When you check the admin agents, it's Instant Companies Limited and Swift Incorporations, which I've been telling everybody since 2005, 2006, that these are Freemason network boiler rooms, as in 788, 790 Finchley Road. And they operate out of 1 Mitchell Lane, Bristol. Its interacting satellite address is 21 St Thomas Street in Bristol, and the sub-satellite is 44 Upper Belgrave Road, Clifton, Bristol. These are 3 main Bristol boiler rooms that are controlling hundreds of thousands of Freemason network Ponzi scams, money laundering shell companies.
Does this link into the Clinton Foundation in any way, Gordon?
The Clinton Foundation. You want to go on to the Clinton Foundation? All right.
Well, Gordon, if you want to hold on,
we should really stick with things in this country, shouldn't we? Really?
Right. Let's go on. Let's go on to.
This is worldwide. This isn't just in this country, Peter.
Oh, right. Okay.
Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton have this massive structure where they've assisted other people who then fund the Clinton Foundation. You know about that?
Yeah.
But nobody checked the William J. Clinton Foundation in the UK. And its number is 06308133. Easy, isn't it? I mean, nobody looks. It's there. The evidence.
They don't want to look, Gordon. That's a problem.
They don't want you. They think
Bill Clinton is the son of Churchill.
Yeah. Now.
Yeah.
If you look at the 4 listed corporate directors, one is Fisher Secretaries Limited, which is at Acre House, Andrew Martin Kessel, Bruce R. Lindsay, and Diana Georgina Noble. Now, Mr. Bruce R. Lindsay, they come from Little Rock in Arkansas. Now, that's a nice place, isn't it?
That's Clinton's home patch, isn't it?
That's right.
So does Diana Georgina Noble. But when you check that their companies, Nameco number 955 Limited and Nomina PLC and Hamden Legal PLC, it's when you dismantle those that you find out it's linked to Agent Provocateur Limited. Now, there's a nice name, isn't it?
Oh.
And just where they get founded, 788 790 Finchley Road.
Right.
So it's a matter of understanding the common addresses with common people where these addresses are linked to billion-pound organised crime.
Yeah.
So if we go back into a little bit of history, when we talk about the Rothschilds and the way that they took over, the Napoleonic Wars, the First World War, the Second World War, the American War of Independence, loads of them.
Goes back to Queen Victoria as well. Actually, George.
It's the same people that are linked into it all the time.
It is.
Is that right?
Families back. You can trace these families back hundreds of years, and they've been in control of the money. They've been in control of entertainment, media.
Yeah. So they've absorbed people into their fraternity, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. We think government is basically run by people that you don't see, and the people that you do see are blackmailed into doing their bidding, because I think from what we look into, there's so much corruption and with all these people that are concerned in public office, and I mean nearly all of them. We think it's all blackmail. It's all paint, smoke and mirrors.
Yep. Yep.
It's divide and rule. And as I said, there's not many of these people. There's a hell of a lot of us. We don't need them anymore. We've got robots and computers. We don't really need these people anymore. It's about time they pissed off and let us get on with it.
Well, you've got transhumanism as well, Peter.
Well, yeah, when you talk about stability, when you hear politicians talk about stability, you see what you've got to realise is these people at the moment, they're in the top jobs. They're taking all the money. They're on top of cloud nine. These people, wheeling around in their yachts and palaces. Stability to them is for everything to remain the same. They don't want progress, because progress will eventually oust them.
Yeah, but they're disposable assets to these people.
So it's about time we all stop bickering to one another and looked at the goal that we're trying to chase. I don't give a shit who says who and who says what. I don't care. I've stood in crowds of people. If anyone wants to say anything, then come up and see me. I'm quite approachable, and I'll answer your questions. Easy. This is what you're going to do. I don't care about any of the other stuff. It's just a distraction. And it gives these people more time. So we've got to move in. The last decade the movement has got so big, and we're getting to a stage now where we could become very powerful if we stop all the bullshit, because we're all fighting the same people. It goes, and we've got to drop the me. It's bullshit.
Yeah, but Peter, I keep mentioning this, and I keep saying it again and again on these shows. You've got the French authorities and you've got the Australian authorities that are looking into these matters, and they're doing what they've got is, that the French and the Australian authorities have got Gordon's information.
Yes. Right. Yeah, I realise that.
This is what you've got to remember. Now,
that's why we think of ourselves a real small little group, because, as I said at the beginning of the show, all of the stuff that we release, you cannot knock it. You can't rebut it. It is 100% accurate.
Yeah, but carry on, Peter. Right, so you've got the Australian authorities and you've got the French authorities. They're doing background work now that they're investigating. They are really investigating now, and they've been over to London to look at Anne Loverow. She's now in Rio Tinto. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
know about
Rio Tinto have got the wind up. Gordon might want to discuss this when I've finished what I'm saying now. But you've got a guy in there called Jan Du Plessis. Now, Gordon will want to talk. Yeah, just give us a second. Just give us a second, Gordon. Just give us a second.
Yeah.
Now, so you've got the Australians, you've got the French and the Swiss that are investigating now, and this is why they're panicking.
Yeah.
It's because of what's happening on Facebook. It is because of the things that are going on in the background. Because Gordon has assembled a team, Pandoras Box, right? We're just ordinary people, right? Same as Gordon. But Gordon has got he's got amazing skills in pulling things apart and reassembling them, right? Mechanical skills. And he's managed to put that into paperwork. And he's got all of this, right? Everything. And I mean everything. I mean, he's just told me something this morning that absolutely shook me up, okay? And he'll probably not discuss it now on the show, but I can assure you that what he's told me is going to bring this all down, all right? Now, the main issue is how we bring it down.
Yeah.
Not whether it's going to come down, it's how it's going to come down. Whether it's going to come down in a way that's going to hurt as few people as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's what we want.
Yeah.
But we want the story to come out, so it never happens again.
I mean, I joined it with you and Gordon because I want people in Africa to have a decent life. Yeah. I want people anywhere across the world to have a decent life, not to be screwed over by these bastards that have been doing this for centuries. All right, for a decent lifestyle, but to get that, you've got to have sensible people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of these things, obviously, a good place to start with these things is because obviously we know a lot of them have been hidden up in D notices. You know, they've only just done one with Thatcher, haven't they? They've locked these up until 2053. Yeah, now, this is all first in the court of justice.
It's just a defence mechanism, that's all it is, because they know we're onto them.
Oh,
but
definitely.
The point is what Gordon has, he's passing it out. He is talking to people way above us.
Oh, yeah.
To people not only in France, not only in Australia, but all over the world, in positions of very, very, very powerful positions. Okay. Now, I'm not prepared to say it now who he's talking to, but trust me when I say that these people want rid of these people. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, they're working a system now. All right, that is much more flexible in the system that is being operated by these people that have been manipulating us for hundreds of years at least, in one way or another. Okay? The game's up. Now, the point is, what we need to do is we need to move forward in a way that's going to be as least destabilizing as possible to the majority of people on this planet. Yeah. We don't want a third world war. We don't want this, that, and the other.
Well, the easiest way to do it would be to make everything free.
Well, I agree. And this brings in stuff that you mentioned before about technology. And I totally agree with you. Now it's there. We know it's there. It needs to come out. But it needs to come out in a fashion. And as I'm saying, it needs to be brought out in a way that's not going to bring the house, everything down.
Yeah, of course, we don't want to bring the house down, but what I think people do want and what we deserve is justice.
Oh, yes.
And these people have got to be raked over the coals in public.
Yeah. But also, as well, we've got to accept the fact that we've been allowed to be we have been allowed to be exploited as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying, Pete?
Yeah, I do. We've been manipulated.
Yeah, we've allowed ourselves to be manipulated.
Yeah. You're
So
manipulated from the first day you go to school.
Yeah, we've got to grow some balls and say that's enough.
Yeah.
Listen.
I mean, I can assure you, we all have black, tinted glass cars driving past occasionally, and things like this, trying to put us off and deter us over the years. But it just ain't going to work. And I hope that by now they realise this. This stuff is just going to be kept. We're just going to keep dribbling it all out. And,
no, it's not. Well, you see, I think you look at it negatively. It's coming out.
No, I don't look at it negatively, but
yeah.
I suppose I just want to see an end to it in my lifetime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It doesn't matter.
It's so long now.
It doesn't matter.
And I want the chance to go fishing with Gordon and that.
Yeah. But Gordon, we're fishing now, mate. Look at it that way. We're fishing now.
Yeah, we are.
What we are doing now is we're pulling bloody £2,000 tuna out the sea.
No, I think it's my job is to get into these people's faces, as you know, and make them feel, try and make them look at themselves. These people have gotten away with it for too long, and I just want justice done for the rest of my people, because there's a lot of blood on their hands, as well as corruption.
Well, our hands as well, Peter, because if you look at it that way, it's because we've been negligent in the past, and we've never sorted things out, and we've let them get away with it and all the rest of it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's you look at it in a much bigger sense.
And we're getting a lot of whistleblowers now as well. We're getting people telling us to carry on with what we're doing. We're 100% accurate in what we say. Keep going. And it's good to get that response.
You see, there's people outside of what we do trying to get in to sort of like take over. Once this is all out, to create a world that we can all live in. When the kids are at peace and they've got all the technology, they can go there. They can learn real education.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They can learn that history is bunk.
We all know there could be a better way of doing things.
They can learn that they are sovereign. Those individual people are sovereign people. They decide what we want in this world.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on, Gordon.
Anyway, guys, I hate to interrupt on this, but we've flown by with an hour, I think, and it's around about this time we normally take a little bit of a break and play a record. What do you think, Andy? About this time, and perhaps in the second half we can get into what we can do going forwards.
Absolutely.
And, just get some ideas for solutions.
Great idea, Jason. And I'd like to dedicate this track to a man who showed his dedication tonight by joining this call, because he was supposed to be out with his wife celebrating his birthday. This one's for you, Pete, mate.
Thank you.
Stem the tide. They looked inside his mind. Guess what they saw staring back? A little snake with nowhere else to hide. All right.
Hi, I'm Andrew K. Fletcher, originator of incline bed therapy, talking to you on Raconteur News.
And welcome back to Raconteurs News this Tuesday evening, where we're joined as ever by Jason. Jason, who was almost silent in the first hour, but I'm sure he'll get a word in the second hour, but you never know. And the guys from Pandoras Box. Welcome back, fellas.
Evening again.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, hi guys. I mean, look, we've got so much information that we could keep your show going for a week without either of you speaking. There's so much of this stuff.
Absolutely. That's why we just let you get on when you've got stuff to put out there. Yeah.
And Gordon's really only released a tiny piece of his library. I'm telling you, this is going to be the biggest scandal the world has ever known. Ever.
There's been a lot of stories about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and how they got their money, and I think that was the article that David Veitch sent. Am I correct, David?
Yes, that's the one, Gordon. Well, there was the article, and there was also the it's called the Clinton Cash documentary. It was quite good. I was very impressed with it, actually. But it just skims over things that Gordon.
Yeah.
And then you've got the evidence for, the facts.
Yeah, and they call themselves investigative journalists, these people. The thing is, they get to about a foot down, and they don't bother going down the rest of the hundreds of feet.
And that's where the dirt is.
I've sent this guy, Pete, I've forgotten his name, Schwartz. Do you know what his name is again, Gordon?
You sent me the article. I'll go into it tomorrow.
I sent him a Twitter to get in touch with you if you want some real evidence. But he hasn't responded as of yet. I'm not expecting him to, but you never know. It might happen.
All right. Let's go to Clinton, shall we?
Yeah.
Sorry, just before you move on, David, is that the article that's in the New York Times or the Breitbart one?
It's both, because I lifted it from Breitbart.
Okay.
And then, that's the one. If you go on my Facebook page, it's very interesting. It's by Pete Schweizer, or somebody his name is. He was the author of a book about the Clinton Foundation, which goes into issues involving Haiti, Colombia, India. Many other. It's a really, really interesting thing to watch. All right.
Obviously, you've got to understand that these people. It's not only mining companies these people use. It's also well-known charities. That's right. But if people actually go onto my Facebook page or Gordon's, I'll stick it up on in Pandora's Box as well, Pete, if you like. Yeah.
Or if they go in there, and they can check it out. It's really interesting. But what it does is it skirts over the things that Gordon has got. Because Gordon has gone into company check and lots of other tools to dismantle all this. And he's got it all, you see. He's got it all. Yeah. And he knows. So now we're starting to talk about the Clintons, all right? So I'll pass it over to Gordon now and let Gordon sort of open up on this a bit.
Okay, the Russian Federation, Putin, actually jailed a few of the oligarchs who asset stripped Yukos oil in Russia.
Good.
And he actually jailed them, but most of them fled to this country. And, I mean, when you're talking about communism and the breakdown of the Federation of Russia or the Russian Federation, what people don't understand is that I believe Putin was right in what he was doing. Now, I believe him to be more honest than our politicians.
I do as well, Gordon.
And I'm not scared to say that. I'm not a traitor to my country. I put a uniform on for it. But what I found out many years ago was that the very people like the Thatchers, when I saw documents in a police records office linked to my partner's fraud, which named Mark Thatcher and Maggie Thatcher as entertaining the same people who stole her money.
Yeah.
They were whining and dining them in a Joburg hotel with members of Executive Outcomes and Sandline International, the SAS commanders, and they were the ones that were linked to the Equatorial Guinea coup. So these people don't use their money; they steal it from little people to then go and purchase arms, to set about bunging dirty Wonga, to corrupt politicians. These people are the scum of the earth.
I mean, Mark Thatcher was involved with Mad Mike Hall, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. So if you looked at Putin and how he orchestrated the prosecution of the directors of UKUS, now, the British government has aided and assisted some of these oligarchs into getting their money out of the Russian government by freezing Russian assets, billions, within the United Kingdom. But not many people do or would understand how they managed to move these billions out of Russia into the United Kingdom, where they all sat on fat deposits and, percentages. It's the same as anything. There's always a cut. Everybody gets a cut. Now, nobody looked, but I did. And that's why I went to the Russian embassy. It's all on record. I went to the Russian embassy and I attempted to get an interview. And unfortunately, they have British police officers that are outside their residential entrance. And you speak through an intercom, which they watched me speak through the intercom. They listened. And they said for me to send them an email with the basic accusations that I made that I had found through a UKUS subsidiary, which is UKUS Services UK Limited, and their directors, which included Company Directors Limited and Temple Secretaries, which is at 788 790 Finchley Road.
Yeah.
But there was a second subsidiary, UKUS International Services Limited. And guess what? Company Directors Limited and Temple Secretaries Limited. However, if you want to check, which anybody can check to see how accurate I am, that if you check Bill Clinton's mates who were funding with Frank Giustra, as you know, I was talking to Field McConnell, and I was. It's all there on YouTube record where I mentioned Frank Giustra. You will find that Bill Clinton and Frank Giustra operated with a company called Uranium One Inc. And some of their directors, through Vostok Power Resources, include Gopinder Asi, Ilya Yampolsky, and Oleg Fedyashin. Now, when you check the directors' biographies for Uranium One Inc., you will find that Oleg Fedyashin was a director of UKUS Services, UKUS Oil. So what you have to do is look at their financials. And what have they got? 1.6 million cash, 3.7 million assets, 2.6 million net worth, and liabilities of 1.1 million. Where's the billions? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Where's the billions that they slaughtered? So when you look at these companies and their financials, you get a better idea of the facts, not hearsay, the forensic facts. So when you follow these directors of UKUS International Services Limited and UKUS Services UK Limited, you come up with the same directors of UKUS Oil in Russia. And what they've done with Uranium One Inc. Oh, that's a nice noise.
Yeah, it's my dog Sam. Scurrying about. He's wanting to walk, Gordon, but you'll have to wait because it's too important.
I thought someone was skinning up.
Yeah.
But the point of this, finish off, Gordon. Finish off. This is really important.
Yeah, as I said, is that most people don't understand is that when you want to trace a company's assets and who they are, that's why Director Check and companies in the UK was actually a search engine for individuals who wanted to invest that they could check themselves. And if you wanted to find out the history of directors, then that was the way to do it. That was how you check who you're dealing with, who is the scumbags or the good people, because then you can look at their history. And once you can find their history, you can see their success or their failure. Now, you tell me, if you look at any of the directors of Anglesey Mining or Pan-African Resources or Brinkley Mining or Vatakula Gold Mines, any of these ones like Red Rock Resources or Regency Mines, when you check all their directors and you check how many companies that they're directors of by using multiple director ID numbers, you will see that these people are not just plain and ordinary using one director identity number that they list. They use up to 30, up to 100 different director ID numbers, and then they're listing multiple directors under each director number. And it's only when you understand that you have to have the patience to dismantle them, as I did with Anglesey Mining back in 2005 and 2006, is to look at the history of their operations and their biographies. And that's how you see they've got all these exotic mining company names and oil and gas names. But when you check that they've been dissolved, changed their names 5 or 6 times without mining jack shit, this is how you find who you're dealing with. And this is what the business secretary of this government is not prepared to face, is that they made mistakes. They made mistakes because the government, Labour and Tory, and the Lib Dems have been infiltrated by these very people who then make some of the senior politicians non-executive directors, like Baroness Valerie Amos, like Lord Ian Connor Ewing.
Yep.
When you start to name the top officials and members of the House of Lords, Howard Flight, I'll name these people. Let them take me to court, because once they do, I can release personal papers to me that will blow them all to jail.
Yeah, Gordon, I'm trying to get them on Anglesey Mining PLC to take Pandora's Box Investigations Limited to court, but they're just not doing it.
Of course they won't.
And also, from what you've just said there before, there's I see, you know this video that I've just put up on your page, Gordon.
Yeah.
One about Clinton Cash, it's called. Yeah. That's really interesting because that is direct, and it is absolutely in sync with ABC Four Corners.
Exactly. That's why I said to people.
It's exactly the same. It is exactly the same.
It's the same modus
operandi. It's exactly the same. So what I was wondering was, Gordon, I mean, the French, and you're wondering what I'm going to say now, Andy, aren't you? The French and the Australians have got information that you've sent them. I was just wondering, have the Americans got any information about this? Because, you see the Clintons, I mean, she's falling off her stool and all this sort of thing. And, I was just wondering if possibly, just possibly, something might have been sent to them. The American authorities.
Well, you mean the CIA and the FBI? Little old me. You don't think...
no, you wouldn't. No.
They have contacted the FBI a long time ago.
Yeah, well...
Really? Don't say anything, Gordon.
Well, I've got the correspondence.
All right, so you have...
I've got the companies that I named.
All right.
Yeah, I've got that.
So do you think...
when you talk about Miss Anne Laverone, who took
Rio Tinto, yeah.
not Rio Tinto,
Queens. Go on.
a shareholder.
Yeah.
In Rio
The
Tinto.
Queen's a massive shareholder in that company.
Yeah, look, the French prosecutors, in order to make it non-sub judice, they have to be very careful about what's released because they want a successful prosecution.
Yeah.
They don't
want to say before, Gordon, to Pete, about we've got to be very careful how we step.
Oh, yeah, I realise, I know that. Because
this
it jeopardise any future court case, for sure.
The only people that are going to get hurt in this lot will be us lot.
Yeah.
And we don't want it anyway.
With Anglesey Mining PLC, when I first uncovered what I did find, regardless of nuclear waste repository, what I did do was I contacted HMRC. And HMRC gave me an incident number and asked me to do a full dismantlement of my accusations and base it upon document fact, which I did do. So I can categorically state that they have contacted me. I have contacted them. I can assure you that it is under financial investigation. I can assure you of that. And that the operations of money that moved in and out of Anglesey Mining through Dinesh Kumar Varma, where it is also Roger William Turner and Robert Ian Cuthbertson, were Freemasons at Painters Hall, 8 and 9 Little Trinity Lane in London, which is the Masonic Lodge of the Director General of the BBC, Lord Anthony William Hall. Now,
the propaganda unit for the scam.
Pardon?
The propaganda unit for the scam.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, as I said, is that when we spoke to Kelly Curtis, which is all on record with John Patterson, when you look at the recording when Kelly Curtis says, "I'll move heaven and earth to help you get this out," then all of a sudden, when I wrote back to show him the evidence with Lord Anthony William Hall, his boss, obviously he must have thought of his survival for his own career, as most politicians would.
Wouldn't they? Anyone, a normal person would do that. But that's not the point. We want justice. Well,
we want people who are to face the law in everyday occurrence, and when you have an opportunity to watch Sky or Virgin, when you see cops war on crime or
politicians war on the disabled and the poor.
And what it is, it dumbs down the viewer audience to look at these programs to say, "Oh, look at these people protecting the public. They've just arrested like John Patterson with 1/4 gram of weed." And then they'll take them to court and they'll make a big hoo-ha about it. But they're not looking at the people that are stealing billions.
Yeah. We are literally living in a matrix, aren't we? We are.
Money matrix.
I don't want to talk about. I know you don't want to talk about. You want to talk about fact, but the fact is that the facts are being kept from us. So, in that sense, it is a matrix. It is a lie. The whole thing is a lie.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember in the 70s when
we get that out to
we all got promised a 3-day week. Does anyone remember the promise of a 3-day working week? And we'd all be all well off after they shut the mines down. Well, now we know what the scam was.
We don't need to be working like that now. We don't need to be doing that.
Once these politicians and start getting them, this is why they're so afraid, I think, of what's going on now within the Labour Party. I think they're so afraid that people like what's going on, the elites, that is, because it will take they'll lose their power, and this is what we need to happen. No matter how we do it, we've got to get these people out of power.
How do we do that? Though, how do we do that? I mean, it's easy enough to. You've got all the evidence you need.
We get them all fighting each other, and by the end of it, Jason, hopefully there'll be none of them left.
Look, there's at the moment there's a massive inquiry into the cover-up, as we've talked earlier, with the Hillsborough disaster, where there's been definite major media coverage that Freemasonry was used in the cover-up of the inquiry. That's out on the major media. They can't hide it. They can't retract it. It's already there. Yeah. And what they were talking about was a guy called Superintendent David Duckenfield.
Yeah, remember that? We know about David Duckenfield. We've done shows all about Hillsborough and all that.
Yes, brings all this in then, Jason.
Yeah, but nobody's ever approached it in the paperwork side to see what companies that he was linked to and his co-directors. Do you understand that? Is that nobody looked at it as being a network of Freemasons who operate coverage by being Freemasons.
We have. I'm sorry. I'd like to just correct you. We have covered that because
I didn't hear that.
I think it was Sir Bert Millerchip who was chairman of the FA at that time. At the time of the Hillsborough disaster, they wanted the Hillsborough inquiry to recommend all-seater stadium, and I think it was Sir Bert Millerchip whose company provided with the seats, the plastic seats, the moulding, and manufactured most of the seats for the stadium. So that has all been looked into.
Yeah, but I look at it on a corporate involvement with other Masons. Do you understand? If I looked, David sent me the corporate, which was Peace Marvel Limited. Do you understand? That's David Duckenfield's company. Do you get where I'm coming from? Look,
yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I know that the Freemasons had a huge hand in it, and they were all Masons.
Yeah, the Freemasons we find behind a lot.
Been popped in there just because David Duckenfield had absolutely no idea about football matches. He's never done one in his life. He wasn't even qualified to understand.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been in.
So what?
No. So he's been put in there, and he's probably made out of it as well because his companies have been involved in things. But I don't think he was quite part of the huge the huge conspiracy that surrounded him.
No, he's not. But what I'm saying is that when people look for a smoking gun, and what I've been trying to say is that when you look at individuals like that who gained high promotion within the police to protect organised crime systems involving Freemasons. That's what I'm saying. So what I did was when I looked at Peace Marvel Limited, which David sent me, I saw the link straight away to Nigel Caton Robinson. I don't know if that means any names to you.
Not to me, Gordon.
All right. So he's directly linked through Peace Marvel Limited to David Duckenfield. And my sort of guide to the people in the investigation would be to look a little deeper, to look at his companies, to say this is a Masonic conspiracy to protect those who are responsible for that, in order that this sort of gets squashed and hidden. The truth is hidden because that's what they do. That's how they protect each other. They protect each other in strength. They isolate individuals like myself and like Pandora's Box to try to ridicule. However, when you looked at Nigel Caton Robinson, who is common to these, and I looked at AZ Installations Limited, I came up with this company, which was the admin company, which is Form 10 Directors FD Limited and Form 10 Directors Secretaries Limited, which was the same network of money laundering companies of Andrea Davison, the Welsh witch from Anglesey, from Bangor. And then I looked at Biofleet Recycling Limited, and guess what I came up with? Yomtov Eliza Jacobs. Now, That gentleman operated out of 665 Finchley Road with the same network of companies of Andrea Davison. Now, then I looked at Changefield Limited, Yom Tov Eliza Jacobs, E-Marketing Products Limited, Yom Tov Eliza Jacobs, Vanquish Limited, Yom Tov Eliza Jacobs. And then I found that this gentleman, Nigel Caton Robinson, had a company called Hillsborough Interior Limited. Isn't that close?
Very close, Gordon.
Well, I'm just saying. But
So
then,
it's all Freemasonry. So what happens is these people are brought into the Freemasonry movement.
all right. So look at another one. Look at Keswick Outdoor Clothing Company Limited. Guess where? 788 790
Finchley Road.
So I'm not talking about hearsay. I'm talking about documented fact that address and the addresses of the other admin agents are Freemason network boiler rooms. That's what they are. And that's how you
need to go down and we need to braid down that bloody door in 790 Finchley Road.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Get it.
And we need to abolish Freemasonry, basically.
Yeah.
We need to abolish all these secret
But then,
societies.
who's the head honcho? Who is?
It was
Prince Philip.
Prince Edward, wasn't it?
Prince Philip and Prince Charles.
Wasn't it his brother, Charles?
Have they got shares in Rio Tinto?
They all have shares. They all have shares.
Yeah.
In Rio
Anne Lab went there.
I think Anne Lavrain's going to be arrested. I mean, once she's arrested, I think
I can't say
a lot of
anything.
stuff will start blowing out of the water.
Exactly. And this is what I'm saying to you now, is there's things happening in the background now. There's decent people in the background that probably can't get promoted into positions of leadership rather than power. All right, that are not allowed to because they're not the fingers up bums boys and all this sort of stuff. You know, the little aprons jobs, or like the Freemason crew. They're not corrupted. All right, and they want a decent society for all of us to live in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, when the way the police and the security people are trained, they're trained in a them and us attitude.
Yeah.
And this is why, I mean, the ordinary rank and file police are controlled. You know, I know a policeman approached me and said that, you know, every time one of them goes on holiday, they'll get called back early because there's something going on, but they get back and there's nothing going on. You know, these people are controlled. They're in fear of losing their jobs. You know, it's that's the way it is, and that's what we've got to change. It's all divide and rule, basically, when you get down to it, and that's how they cover their tracks, by the rest of us fighting against each other.
That's right.
So, you know, when you think that of all the money, the little bit of money that they took off the disabled, which only made up about 3% of the entire welfare budget, you know, the Queen is the biggest beneficiary of welfare, isn't she? And she's got a £36 million pay rise or something. Yep. You know, it's beyond a joke. You got people living in the streets.
She owns 2/3 of the world or 3/4 of the world, doesn't she?
Oh yeah. You know. So you know, this is the thing we need to give the people power back. You know, that's the only way it's going to happen.
Listen, Pete.
Do it for us.
Listen, Pete. Why are we all crammed in cities and towns?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can take the whole of the population of the world, 7 billion, put them all in Australia with a couple of acres of land each, and the whole of Queensland would still be empty. So it's a fallacy that we're overpopulated. It's a load of bollocks.
Why can't people spread out and enjoy a bit of land?
Because they'd have no control over us.
Exactly. They wouldn't have control over us. That's the reason for it.
If you look at crime figures and you look at the areas where most violent crime, robberies, muggings, you know, burglaries, they're all in pockets of poverty.
Yeah, divide and rule.
They get the army people, you know, they get the people that join the army or the forces They all come from poverty-stricken areas because it's their only way out, that or sport. And this is the way they control things, you know. And they train men people that we're actually the enemy.
Just like Freemasons.
Yeah.
Just when they rise up through the Freemasons,
they've got to abolish them.
the ones that have got no sense of decency, and they take them up through the ranks. They take them up, and they end up in a position like Gordon said, running things in Hillsborough, and then you get people killed.
Yeah, we need to declare. These people have got to start declaring whether they're Freemasons, or we've literally got to keep the pressure on them and get them abolished from holding any public office.
They've got to join humanity.
Never be allowed anywhere near a public office.
They've got to join humanity. That's what they've got to bloody do.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit, you know.
Too much greed. We all know it. That's why we're all fighting. There's just too much of it. It's all, you know.
We've got someone in the chat room tonight who's claiming to be a director who's on one of Gordon's lists.
All right.
And he's just posted that Freemasons do a lot of charity work.
Oh, well, we're not saying that all Freemasons are bad.
Of course they do.
We're not saying all Freemasons are bad.
No.
It's a pretty good
pyramid. It's a pyramid.
But there's cliques of criminals, and this is where the mafia went. This is where there's cliques of them.
I'm sure there are introduction Freemasons who believe that it does open doors for business and they can operate, good charities for well-wishing causes. But I'd like to know from this director, if he's willing to name his company, if he wouldn't mind having a chat with us in an open theatre where we can film it,
Well, just go on to Company's House and do a search for Gringo.
Ask Gringo if he's prepared.
Well, let me scan back a bit. When it was mentioned, what evidence is there of nuclear waste being at the Morris shaft?
Mm-hmm.
One of the people I did an interview with, a gentleman in Anglesey, lives there.
Yeah.
He actually came on to, it was Common Law Courts of Wales, people down in Port Talbot.
Yeah.
Now, in that interview, which we recorded, we've got the full recording of that, he mentioned that somebody had contacted him to say that he was actually there, working there, moving the nuclear waste down the mine. Now, that's what he said, not me. I didn't say that. Now, that's strange, isn't it? And now he's retracted that by saying it's all bullshit. Now, I would like an opportunity to confront these directors in an open hall, let it be on record, and let them answer the questions on their company directors and their bio histories, like Derek William Hooley. Now, there was a mine site interview, I think it was on the 14th of October or the 7th of October 2014, when Mr. Hooley gave an interview to prospective investors regarding the conditions at Pares Mountain Mine, which has this exorbitant zinc resource, which they've been drilling and finding and drilling and finding for 32 years. For 32 years, they keep finding it and they keep drilling. And they say, well, Bill Hooley said at this mine site interview, when he was explaining a graph of how they were going to sink in a spiral decline shaft to the bottom to rehabilitate the Morris shaft and reconstitute the workings so that it could be brought into production, he mentioned a company which he said, oh, I don't know how this works, but when you check director check, he actually started the company. So there's a man that describes...
What's the company, Gordon? What's that company called?
I can't think of it.
I was trying to put you on the spot. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all right. It's the graphic design people who did the design for the shaft, this spiral decline shaft, to the bottom of the Morris shaft, where they were going to rehabilitate the shaft and the mine workings with a spiral shaft, a spiral drive shaft. Now, I'd like to question somebody, these directors, in a public meeting, which is on film, and then I'd like to give my side as an person that's worked with goldfields, to ask them to explain certain facts that I know concern that mine. And if they can answer that, and there's no problem with them allowing me to have access to the shaft to do a visual and a possible inspection of the shaft after they take the 2-ton kibble out of it, which is just a bucket, and have a look at the possibilities of sticking a submersible down there with a remote cable and cameras to look down this flooded shaft, because Derek William Hooley said it's flooded to within 20 foot of the top. Now, I know that they've applied for a dewatering license. Now, when you apply for a dewatering license, normally they send an environmental expert from the council to come and examine and take samples of the water to see if they're highly acidic and dangerous if you pump them to surface. Now, because I've done water purification myself within the mining industry and with the Royal Air Force, I've got a better idea than most people how you test water for heavy metals. And when you look at this mine, because as they say themselves, it's copper, zinc, tin, gold, silver, within whatever particle proportions. However, that makes it a heavy metal mine. Now, you can't just dewater it to surface. You have to contain it. So where are they going to get rid of it? You're talking about a 300-meter shaft and 1,000 offshoot gallery, 1,000-meter offshoot gallery. But however, Derek William Bill Hooley claimed to the investors, because I got the copy of the video, is that he claimed that this was a nice, tight mine. How can it be a nice, tight mine if it's flooded to within 20 foot of the top? Somebody's bullshitting somebody. So let's get the facts out. If they let us inspect the shaft and do a visual, and even a submersible drop down the shaft to see whether there's any containers down there. Surely they'd be willing to do that. Then we could.
Yeah,
then we could
I'll send an email to Bill Hooley and ask if he's prepared to do that, Gordon. I'm not expecting an answer.
Can answer why that 9th of October 2014 mine site presentation has now been removed. Maybe you could explain that.
What one's been removed?
I think it's the 9th or the 14th of October video podcast from mine site when Bill Hooley was a presentation to investors. That's been removed. Yeah. And on that video, which I got a copy, I'm not stupid, is that Bill Hooley said that he had no idea what that company did. And yet he's the one that founded it, and he was the secretary of it. So that doesn't show good management skills, does it? If you found a company and you are the one of the sole directors of that company, and yet you don't know what it does. Mm-hmm. Sort of catch-22, Mr. Hooley. So let's get some facts.
Are you starting to understand?
Making loads of mistakes, you see, because they've got away with it for so many years that it's just become an everyday sort of thing to them, you know. And they're making loads of mistakes, and it's there for anyone to see, you know.
Are you starting to understand why we're pushing on Anglesey mining, particularly Andy? You understand now, because this links into Trinity Lane and Lord Hall,
General of the BBC,
and the rest of them. And Lord Hall is a propagandist for all this scam right? It's going.
Anglesey will open up a can of worms, or a Pandoras box, as we like to call it.
Yeah.
All right. So you know I talk about Lord Anthony William Hall. He's the liveryman of Painters and Stainers Masonic Lodge, 8 and 9 Little Trinity Lane, London. That's not just the home of one Masonic Lodge. There are many. Use that same set of chambers. But when people look at Lord Anthony William Hall, he doesn't just operate with one director ID. He has many. Now, he's also in charge of the BBC Pension Trust. Now, what were we talking about earlier about pension funds being asset stripped?
Yeah, British Home Stores. Yeah.
But if you look down his one ID number, 901636979, you'll understand a little bit why our friend that we went to speak to on video, when you look at, I think it's the 9th one, is Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit Limited. Now, that one's a dissolved company. Now, Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit Limited is registered to 1 Park Row, Leeds, which is the same address. Anthony William Paul Sage and Frank Timmis in mining companies that have just been shut down by the Australian Federal Police. So, let's go.
Say that again, Gordon. Say that again. Say that again, Gordon. What's closed down by the Australian police?
All the companies of Peter Landau and the 2 addresses that were raided in 2012-2014 by the Australian Federal Police, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, the Australian Crime Commission unit, and the tax authorities and the Commonwealth authorities raided 2 service addresses of Anthony William Paul Sage.
Right.
Yeah. And when you check those companies that he was running operated out of 34 Parliament Place, where in Perth, where East Four Corners confronted John Stratton in the 1 billion loss from Johannesburg Consolidated Investments and Durban Rudaport Deep. Now, the reason I mentioned Durban Rudaport Deep was because the head honcho there was a guy called Mark Michael Wellesley Woods. Now, if he wants to speak to me in court, he can, because he's the man that, when you check, Anglesey Mining purchased Grangersburg Iron Ore, and the sole executive is Mark Michael Wellesley Wood. Now, strangely, Grangersburg Iron Ore PLC is 3 flooded iron ore shafts that will never be brought into production because we get cheaper iron ore from China. So it's just putting glitter on a flooded bird. And that's where they move money. And that's how they move money, by taking money out of a company like Anglesey Mining PLC and purchasing another crock of shit. And when they purchase that, all they're doing is money laundering on a massive scale, because the money that goes into Anglesey Mining PLC actually comes not just from a load of thousands of little tiny private investors. It gets moved by Dinesh Kumar Varma, and he uses his company, which has control of 11 other Ponzi scams, to move their money in and out of Anglesey Mining. And all the company records are there. So any time that these people want to take us to court, we will use the forensic financial records of the company, which are never audited.
Yeah. So when the Clinton Foundation launder money, so that goes through 788, 790 Finchley Road and out through some of these shell companies, Gordon?
And Lane and One Mitchell Lane in Bristol, which is Swift and companies, and then 39A Leicester Road, and then 44 Upper Belgrade Road, Clifton, Bristol, and 6 Jupiter House. And then all the common addresses, which are Freemason money laundering admin service agencies. And this is how they managed to move money into Panama, which is what's been exposed, and to Cyprus.
Right. Now I get it.
You have
So the American authorities are aware of this now.
Well, it's money. People, HSBC Bank have been fined billions for money laundering for organised crime. They don't give a crap. This is where money comes from. They don't, as long as they get the money, they're not bothered who suffers, as long as they get the money.
It's the control. It's the control.
So like Haiti, when there was a disaster that was probably a bloody one of those weather heart attack or something like that they're talking about. I don't know whether it was or not. I'm not going to speculate on that. I assume that it probably was, but I'm not going to say it was. So all you do is you do an attack like that. You go in, and then you go in and you say you're gonna draw all these monies in from the United Nations, from the taxpayers from all around the world. You're going to sort all this mess out. But while they're doing that, they're just ripping people off left, right, and centre. And that money's going off to different companies, different shell companies, and through the Clinton Foundation and whatever. Is that right, Gordon? Is that how it works?
Yeah. Look. To steal money is easy. Just need a pen, and you have to control the money. Much the same as Steve Robson is the one from Royal Bank of Scotland, and his 7 cronies that they removed. But those people moved into other companies like Extrata, which is a mining company. Do you understand? It's a joke. It's just like Anne Laveron got moved into Rio Tinto. It's rewarding people who have stolen billions. Yeah. It's just to keep them with a salary, to keep them maintained at the head of organisations that they can asset strip. And that's what they call them, robber baron.
Is she a sir yet? Is Anne Laveron a sir yet?
A sir?
No, it could be a
sirina.
She's got a frock.
What about Jan Duplessis? Is he a sir yet?
It's the same as understanding Peter Landau and why they froze his assets. Now, I'm talking about BlackRock Resources. I'm talking about Range Resources. And they were all operated out of the boiler room, 34 Parliament Place, which was a common room for multiple companies that were all interacting with each other, which has been exposed. Because the Australian press, which work in conjunction with the releases from raids that are conducted by the Australian Federal Police, etc., when you looked at the companies which I was communicating back in 2006 with the Australian Federal Police and the Australian Securities Investment Commission, is that people like Peter Landau's secretary, like Jane Rosemary Flegg, and when you see Latin Gold Limited use Smith & Williamson, now that's a famous name that I'm not going to go into right now, but then you look at Jason Anthony Bontempo and a load of people connected to politicians. This is how they do it. And
just in Australia, over here, Gordon.
And Pincent Masons. Now, Pincent Masons, if anybody wants to look at who Pincent Masons are, and they want to understand about organised crime, billion-pound money laundering and asset stripping, just go to the Gerald Carroll Foundation Trust tax fraud. And that's when you'll start to pick up the names. Just put the names in a search engine. Pincent Mason, Gerald Carroll Foundation fraud. Just put it in. Anybody can do it. I'm not a bullshitter. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. It's there. And
we bumped into one of those guys, didn't we, from Pincent Masons? He was very cool.
And if you remember, because I got it recorded, I mentioned Vasile Frank Timmis. Oh, he's a dodgy character. Yeah, but you're the person, Pincent Masons as a company, that's facilitating the money laundering from Peter Landau's companies and Anthony William Paul Sage's companies, where those companies lent Frank Timmis hundreds of millions That's all on the record. And now Frank Timmis has told them to go get stuffed. So they just write it off. It's anyway.
They go and hide on their yachts. They go and hide on their yachts in international waters.
That's some absolutely amazing information you've brought out there, Gordon. Thank you so much to all you guys for joining us tonight. It doesn't look, from what we're seeing in the chat room, as if Gringo's going to take you up on the offer for a face-to-face interview on camera.
We'll do it ourselves. We'll go there.
Well, they replied that they haven't got a camera. Several people in the chat room said no problem. There'll be queues of people wanting to film that, but no. So I don't think that one's going to happen.
I can assure you that the people that need to know do know, and it's just a matter of time, really. I mean, it's spreading from the feedback that we get. This is going worldwide.
That's absolutely brilliant, guys. Look forward to catching up again with you soon. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and especially Peter for cancelling your birthday meal. That's above and beyond the Call of Duty. I hope you have a great birthday when you do get to celebrate. Thank you, Peter, David, Gordon. Thank you, Jason, as well. And stick around.
Come on, Rossi.
Yeah, come on, Valentino Rossi at Silverstone next week. Stick around tonight because we've got Doc Rock coming back on. Doc played us some brilliant tunes as a bit of a warm-up there, and he's coming back on to play us some more tunes. And Jason and myself will be back on Thursday night with Timothy Watson, whose pen name is Timothy Spearman, and he's going to have an awful lot to tell us about who William Shakespeare really was. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for the platform.
Hillary Clinton's legs just dropped off.
That's brilliant, guys. Thanks so much for tonight, and we'll play you out with a bit more rock for the birthday boy. Good night, folks.
Thanks, Andy, Jason.